Hello and welcome to this videocast for subscribers to davidicke.com. Well, in last week's videocast I talked about politicians as actors. Kind of appropriate because what we've seen this past week is a movie. And I'm talking, of course, about what has happened in Paris. The horror is real. The cover story is a hoax. And I'll explain why I say that in some detail later on. I came up with a phrase long time ago now that I call problem, reaction, solution. I was looking for a simple way of describing something they call the Hegelian dialectic. And it works like this. You want to change society in a way that you can't just openly say we're going to do this because you know you're going to get an adverse reaction and response from the public. So you don't just say what you want openly. You play problem, reaction, solution. First stage, you create a problem, covertly, of course, and you get someone to be blamed for it. And once you've created your problem, what you're looking for from the public is a reaction. And in terms of terrorism, you're looking for fear, you're looking for outrage, and you're looking for a public that either says, this can't go on, something must be done, or is at least open-minded to the fact that change must take place because of the problem. At which point, having created the problem covertly, got that public reaction, you then openly offer the solutions to the problems you have covertly created. And that is what has happened in Paris in the last week. And that is what happens again and again with these situations. And if people could only open their minds to the fact that it is possible, say the bloody least, that a force behind governments would create horror to get the reaction and the response so that they could change society in the way that they want. Now, for the last 25 years in my books and talks around the world, I've pointed out what this hidden hand, wants. It wants a global Orwellian fascist dictatorship where people are controlled down to the fine detail of their lives, where freedom of speech, freedom of movement, all of it is no more. We're seeing it unfold by the day now, all these years later. They also want to pick off country after country in the Middle East. I've talked in other videocasts and in my books about the list and how far it goes back and how they're picking them off, Libya and Iraq and now Syria. And they want to expand that across into what's known as Eurasia, that great landmass from Europe to China and from Russia down into the Middle East. And look at what has happened as a result of Paris, as a result of the problem covertly created. We are having extraordinary levels of the Orwellian state being introduced in France. We're having it happening in Britain. They're talking about doing it as a response in Australia, and so it goes on. And the idea is to terrify people into giving their freedoms away. That's how this technique works. We also have a situation where they want to remove Assad. They want to bomb Syria to oblivion as they pick off their list. He's delayed them for too long. And of course, David Cameron has been trying for how long now to get support to have British bombing in Syria. I mean, how many do they bloody want? We've got the United States bombing in Syria. We've got France. We've got Turkey. We've got Israel when they come in and have a go. And we've got Russia. I mean, look at the size of the land. There'll be nothing left. That's the idea. And so, as a result of Paris, David Cameron, who was struggling to get support for British bombing in Syria, is now saying, oh no, after Paris, I'm going to make a case for it. We must be involved. And we've got this from a newspaper this week. We should bomb Syria, say 60% of Britons. And it actually says here, Mail poll reveals country's reaction to the Paris bombings. Problem, reaction, solution. And so we have a situation where we are asked to believe that we have an agenda of what they want to do, bombing in Syria, more and more Big Brother Orwellian state, and a terrorist attack happens in Paris at the right time to push on what they do and what they want. And we are asked to believe that that is all a coincidence. And before anyone says, oh, well, yeah, but there were Muslims involved and all that. Well, people who claim to be Muslims. I know many Muslims who don't go around with weapons and suicide bombs. But we need to understand how this works. They talk about masterminds. We're after the mastermind. We've killed the mastermind. I have a question. Why do these masterminds always turn out to be bloody idiots? Because they're not masterminds. I was interested to see an interview this week with a French journalist who had been a hostage of ISIS, and a deal was done to get him out. And what he said, I was with them, I saw them, I interacted with them, including this jihadi John bloke. He said, we have a phrase in France, which is that someone is evil and stupid. And he said, my experience of this ISIS crowd is that they are more stupid than evil. Now, when you consider the evil that they have done, the level of stupidity he must be talking about beggars belief. Oh, but these are masterminds. They're orchestrating this terrorism. This is how it works. It doesn't always work like this. There are absolute outright hoaxes, complete bloody hoaxes. But this is one way that it works. If you are working for a major corporation, if you're on the, if you like, the shop floor, you're at the bottom rung where the stuff gets done, where the products are made and all that, then you have orders to follow, instructions to follow, organization to follow. But you're not deciding that. It's being decided further up the hierarchical pyramid of the corporation. So you might know the next guy up, you might know even the next guy up from him. But then it suddenly goes quiet. The source of the ultimate instructions, just, you don't know. Oh, well, it's come down from an high, or best we better do it. Now, these problem reaction solutions involving people who genuinely will think that they are fighting for Islam and all this bloody idiocy they talk about, and they will play it out. They'll go and blow themselves up. They'll go and shoot people because they're morons. But they ain't orchestrating it. They are not the ones that have the ability to block or delay responses or block security so that they can get away with it and actually perpetrate what they are doing without being stopped. And here's another. We're asked to believe. It's now clear, in fact it's being admitted, that staggering amounts of money and arms have been handed over to moderate rebels in Syria, no such thing, by the United States and others, Saudi Arabia. And we are asked to believe that those that have armed those people didn't realize that they were going to be handed to ISIS, which is what has happened. ISIS is funded, orchestrated, and directed not by these moronic masterminds with brains the size of a bloody pea. It's done by the very hidden hand that then says, after these terrorist events, we must go to war in Syria, oh, come together in a coalition of more mutual destruction. We are asked to believe that these countries like the United States, Britain, France, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Qatar, that have funded, trained and armed these people and direct them, that they have no control over them doing a terrorist act in Paris. And what we're seeing now is a double whammy. We are seeing the ante being upped to create maximum terror, maximum fear in these societies of the West, France, Britain, Germany, United States, to so terrify the public that they will give their freedom away to these psychopaths, and I'm talking about the politicians here and those behind them. They'll give their freedoms away to these psychopaths in fear of not being protected otherwise from what they have been manipulated to fear. And the other side of this, because what we're talking about with problem reaction solution is, in the name of my last book, it's a perception deception. It's all a perception deception. You know, if you want to control what people do, what people will challenge and what people will not challenge, then you have to dictate their perception. Because their behavior, their action or non-action comes from their perception of reality, their perception of a situation. So what we're looking at, although we're seeing horrific terrorism, horrific events, it's a mind game. It's about manipulating the perception of the public so that they will act and react in the desired fashion. Now, that perception deception comes from the public accepting the official version of these events. So, oh yeah, so we got to do this. We don't really want our freedoms taken away, but what can we do in the face of all that stuff? The antidote to that is the alternative media. The alternative media that looks at these events and comes from it from another angle and provides a different narrative. A narrative that says, actually, if you look at it from this angle, who benefits from this? Who benefits from what happened in Paris? Well, it's obvious who benefits. Anyone who wants to take freedoms away, wants a police state, wants the army on the streets, and wants to get support for the mass bombing of Syria. Who benefits is, as the phrase goes, the one most likely to have committed it, and in this case, ultimately, organized and engineered it. So what we're seeing in this double whammy is, on one side, more and more of these events to terrify people. And note, these problem reaction solutions invariably target places and people where normally people would feel safe. So all these mass shootings in the United States happen in places like schools. You bomb a Russian aircraft, so people get fearful about air travel. You have a terrorist attack in Tunisia on a holiday beach, so people are terrified even to go on holiday. It's all a mind game, and it's all systematic, and we better get our asses in gear and understand this, because we ain't seen nothing yet otherwise. So we have the fear, and then the other side of the double whammy, and that is the war that's now being waged and is being waged upon the alternative media to try to silence them, to try to censor them. This week I've been banned for 5 days by Facebook, and other cases have come to light where people have had things censored at the most outrageous way by Facebook. Go to davidicke.com, see why I've been blocked out for 5 days, and you'll be staggered at the reason for it. And here's another we're being asked to believe. We're being asked to believe that even though this is a perception deception, it's about control of information, that a giant global communications operation like Facebook and Google are not controlled by this network, this hidden hand that prospers by manipulating perception. Are you having a laugh? And what's happening is these companies like Facebook, led by a bloke in a t-shirt, hey man, cool, hey, I'm one of you. Well, the smiley face is starting not to smile so much as the real reason for Facebook comes to light, which is control of information and surveillance, and others like it. And therefore, people who care about freedom need to give maximum support to the alternative media, which is being squeezed financially by people like YouTube and Google, where search engines are being manipulated so the alternative media is not as on display as it could be, and censorship in other ways. We need to support the alternative media, because if that goes, there is no other challenge alternative to the official narrative, which is designed to sell you a lie. Now, another thing about these problem reaction solutions like Paris is they have a pattern. People like me have been pointing out this pattern for ages. And what you can do now when you hear there's been an attack in Paris, and it's happened over this one, People are saying, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is what's going to happen next. And it happens, and it's happened in Paris. Go through a few things. First of all, passports. You know, someone said on the internet this week something very profound. He was trying, he's kind of being ironic, but very profound. He said, would people please send me all their passports so I can build a bomb-proof building? Because these passports appear to be indestructible. Build a bomb shelter with them. Let's look at 9/11. Do you know, after 9/11, you saw the planes hitting the buildings and the fireballs. The FBI and the New York police announced that they'd found one of the hijacker's passports. He's supposed to be in the bloody plane, in a place called Vestry Street, right in the middle of Ground Zero, where the World Trade Center was. I mean, was it singed? It's a bloody nonsense, but it's a perception deception. It's not true. Of course it's not true. It's idiocy. But they're looking for the reaction. Hey, honey, it was them Muslims on them planes. They've just found a passport. Come on, honey, there's a game show on. And a year later, an independent television crew went to New York doing a documentary a year after 9/11. And they asked the New York police about this hijacker's passport. And they were told it's a rumor that might be true. There was a press conference called after 9/11 to say they'd found it. Why? Perception deception. It's a mind game. And then we have 7/7, the London bombings in 2005, where one of the people who's supposed to be on the tube train blew himself up with a bomb in his bag. The police found, miracles are to a penny in these problem reaction solutions because they're lying. They found his passport, they found his driving license, and they found his mobile phone insurance. Oh, you sure it was him then, the guy you want to collar for it? It's absolutely unbelievable. Before 9/11, or at the time of 9/11, they were saying they'd found Qurans in cars and Qurans in hotel rooms where the hijackers were. Well, it's supposed to be Muslims. What, they're leaving the Quran behind everywhere they go for? Mind game. It's not even subtle. It's not even intelligent. But my God, what does that say about people that believe this crap when it's so blatantly false? Then we've had this remarkable coincidence that the 7/7 bombings happened during the G8 summit in Gleneagles, Scotland, so they could milk it. And this Paris one happened right on the eve of the G20 summit in Turkey, which was going to discuss terrorism. And where's Turkey? Just over the border from Syria. Then there's drills, exercises. A lot of people might not know this all these years later, but on the day of 9/11, there were exercises in the sky, the very same skies where the 9/11 planes came down. They were exercises that were working to a scenario that was exactly the same as what happened, including the scenario of a plane being flown, a hijacked plane being flown into a building in Washington. And they have an organization in North America called NORAD, which is supposed to react to situations like hijackings, and they send planes up very quickly. Well, on 9/11, they didn't, of course. It was ludicrously late. And if you like, the cavalry arrived when it was all over. I've seen the logs for NORAD for that day. I've published them in some of my books. And the NORAD response system was completely scrambled by not knowing if what was coming in, the reports, were the exercise or real. I mean, you have people saying, well, is this exercise or real? And why they do these drills in conjunction with the real thing is it allows them to hide the real thing. It allows them to do so much behind the organization of the drill, and in terms of 9/11, to scramble the normal response mechanism to hijackings. The 7/7 bombings in 2005, they had a drill at the same time involving the same stations. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about. Mass shootings galore in America. Drills are going on either there or close by at the same time. The Oslo bombing and the mass shootings, you remember that? In 2011 with this guy, Breivik. A bomb went off in Oslo. And just by coincidence, the Oslo police that day, in that same place, area, were having a drill, having an exercise based on a bomb going off. And the drill ended 26 minutes before the real bomb went off in the same place. Boston Marathon bombings, drill going on at the same time in the same place. Oklahoma bombings of the Murrah building, drill going on at the same time in the same place. People who arrived that morning, many of whom never went home, saw the bomb squad around the building before the bomb went off, or the bombs as they were. It's a scam. It's a mind game. And they are manipulating your perception so that you give them your freedom. And you give them their support to go and bomb, destroy, slaughter more people with brown faces in the name of fighting terrorism. Wake up, human race, while you still can.